There we go. Oh my God, we've been talking on IG for the last 3 minutes.
Mute.
On mute.
Ah, that's not good.
Well, we're just we're really gonna cut that out.
We're gonna cut that
We're gonna
out.
cut it out. We don't have to cut it.
Nobody.
All right. So as we're moving along, let's get started. Let's get started.
Let's get started.
Welcome to
Church folks be talking. What church folks be talking?
And let me tell you, we have a lot to talk about. We were on a hiatus, I guess a holiday hiatus. Would you say it's a holiday hiatus? Involuntarily. Some voluntarily.
Yes.
We were out voluntarily because we took a vacation. We took an adult vacation.
To celebrate
with our family to New
Orleans. This is our first time being to New Orleans.
This was. How did you like it? Did you have any expectations about what it was going to be going in? Were you thinking something one way and it ended up being something different?
Not necessarily like the way I did with Las Vegas, actually.
You really thought we were going to fire and brimstone.
Welcome, Terry.
Las Vegas.
Good to have you, girl.
Hey, pal. And then
pal.
And then we got to Las Vegas, and you were like, I don't ever want to leave here.
No, it was nice. New Orleans, man. It's like you just literally.
You liked it?
In New Orleans, that's literally you just walk right into history. And just the infrastructure in certain areas.
It was more like an antebellum history. Have you ever seen that movie with Janelle Monáe? That's what I felt like.
Wouldn't that be post antebellum?
Well, I mean, it felt antebellum-ish.
Antebellum-ish. Okay, right? Antebellum-ish. Yes,
hey.
Right. Hey. Well, hey.
All right. So that was voluntary.
That was voluntary.
And then we had such a good time, our immune systems could not keep up, and we came back to the crib sick as a dog. I think we equally caught the flu.
You caught the flu.
No COVID.
No COVID. We tested. That's right. Literally, we didn't have the COVID.
We didn't have COVID, thank God.
But thank God. But anyway, good evening. Good evening.
We were out and just trying to recoup and then come out and come back stronger, great content. So we are so excited to be here today so we can discuss our fourth installment of the love languages. And we are talking today about
acts of service. But before we begin, we always wanted to introduce ourselves.
Oh my God!
Left beside me is my beautiful wife, Dr. Frankie Graham Brown.
And to the right of me is Pastor P.
The sexiest pastor of 2022.
You are the vainest pastor of 20. Isn't that a sin?
No, it's not a sin. It's not a sin.
I'm hella vain, so I'll take it.
Hello, Penny. Welcome on in. Welcome.
All right. So as we're talking about acts of service, we have thus far reviewed. Our first one was
Words of affirmation.
Then we talked about
quality time.
And then we talked about
receiving gifts.
Let me tell you, receiving gifts, arguably for me, was the toughest love language to discuss. But it ended up being the most rewarding, if I'm honest. Because remember guys on IG, I know you feel me, pal, how I was killing Pedro with the lack of and his ability to receive gifts, right? But he heard something because we went to New Orleans. I was receiving gifts.
I don't know if it was a guilt subconsciously. I don't know.
I probably dragged you for filth.
No, but but you know already that I'm the type of person that when you ask, I do give it to you. Not in that way, but I do give what you heart desire. Yeah. So it's just understanding that my cultural background play a part of it.
Right. We did have the violin going last time discussing how he never received gifts.
But it's good to that though, because sometimes we superimpose. Right.
I learned a lot about it.
Should we say a word that we're trying to acculturate
okay
to our culture and we expect them to act the way that our culture act, the way that you were
Well,
brought up.
we'll get right into that because
Right.
that really falls along the lines with acts of service, right?
Acts of service.
And so
Right.
we're going to talk about that. But like I said, that was probably the toughest one to discuss because it was the one that we've had the least experience with. But let me tell you, we didn't flip that thing around, and now I think you are singing a new tune like Pied Piper.
Because remember when we kind of went back, we kind of experienced the evolution
Yeah,
of that our love languages changes throughout the years.
right. Because we were talking
Right.
about how mine was quality service. Child, acts of
Quality
quality,
time.
good customer service is my
Right.
love language.
Quality time.
Quality time, and then it's flipped the script on acts of service.
Right.
So let's talk a little bit about it, sir. What is acts of service?
But before we begin, we also begin with a quote.
That's right. We're back.
Not by Gary Chapman. It's called "Come From."
Sorry.
No, sorry. The quote comes from Gary Chapman. Sorry, my apology.
Who was the original author of
the Five Love Language? And one thing he said in the segment.
Time out. Penny, can you hear my husband today?
Can you hear me today, Penny?
Let's make sure that the volume is where it needs to be before she reads you again for Phil.
Can you hear me today, Penny?
Give me a good usher.
Yeah. All right. You know what that is, Penny?
No, I think that's an old comment. So keep talking.
Reason why that is, Penny, because now we have we have upgraded. Yeah. Yes, it's song good now. Go. Amen. All right. So what I was talking about before you interrupt me.
Acts of service. Man?
Oh, the access. Oh, the begin with the quote. It said
by Gary Chapman.
Chapman said, "Love is always freely given. Love cannot be demanded. Love is always freely given, but love cannot be demanded." Right? You don't demand love. You become love. Right? Another way that you become love is by reciprocating that love from God in order to become love.
Did you make that up?
No, I just
you so off the script with that. I think you added.
No, I just added to it. That's
paraphrased. I knew it.
I just added to it. But the definition of acts of service is the physical expression of a thoughtful gesture, right?
Or and it's about dedicated time.
Dedicated time.
And effort given to your spouse or your personal other in a non-verbal way. So pretty much like Terry said earlier, it's practicing what you preach. It is really put an emphasis on your actions, speaking louder than your words.
Right, exactly. But you also do it in a way. It's you do it in the spirit of love, right? There's no contingent behind it. In other words, right? We're gonna get into that a little bit.
I'm not doing something for you because I'm looking for something
in return, because that's not the act of service.
Like don't be trying to wash some dishes thinking you're gonna get some later.
And sometimes we do that in relationship where the person feels so guilty, right, in the relationship, and the person begins to do a lot of stuff around the house. Sometimes some guys go trying to buy a expensive stuff and etc. etc. But we are sticking to that, right? We're sticking to the script. So act of service is a physical expression and of a thoughtful gesture.
And so as we're talking about acts of service, we're going to really interpose the practice of servanthood. I not affectionately, but we do say Dr. Frankie and Dr. Pedro because we got degrees, right? My dissertation was actually about servant leadership, and all that really is included. Not only leading as a servant, just not in business, but even in your household, even as a friend. And if you are looking to practice active service, it's really about a sense of humility. You're putting yourself on the back burner and you're doing something sacrificially for somebody else, because sacrifice isn't sacrifice unless it costs something, right? So you have to think about, what are you doing for your spouse? You all right?
Yes.
what are you doing for your spouse? Um, that involves sacrifice. What are you doing that you don't want to do for your spouse?
But it really boils down to this word of
It boils more
humility.
down. You're breaking it down
It
further than
boils
what I
down
broke it
to
down.
really to humility. How humble are we willing to demonstrate the acts of service?
Did you not hear that when you were coughing?
Now, Papa was coughing,
I'm
trying
about to
to
say I
exclude that. Use the
just
word
said that.
humble.
All I
Ah,
literally
my
said a whole
goodness.
thing about humility.
Well, now probably didn't hear what you said then. Oh, I see.
Question time.
Question time. But let's talk about
I
what
got a
are
question.
these. You have a question. What is the question?
What is your thoughts on service? Where do you stand when it comes to the acts of service? How do you feel about serving your spouse? How do y'all feel about serving your significant other or your soon to be
Significance
spouse?
order,
How do you
right?
feel about service? Go.
Well, and my definition, how I feel about
I don't want to see your
service
notes.
is defined by my relationship with Christ, right? Because Jesus make it very profoundly that in order for anyone to be great, you have to be a servant. You have to give yourself to that person, to be humbly serve yourself to others, right?
Right.
So
So how do you feel about serving your spouse?
serving you has not been a really
Has that been a challenge?
it has not really been a challenge because it easily comes when it comes to serving you, it comes easily, and that's I consider honestly.
I can say that honestly for you. It does seem like you just wake up ready to serve somebody. Um, well, hopefully not anybody. It's just
Well, if we appreciate.
I'm talking about the Graham Browns and the Graham Littles.
Well, you better clarify that very quickly.
But you're stay out the DMs, ladies. All right, he ain't serving nobody but over here. Um, but you do seem like you do that. Penny says that it brings her joy to serve her loved ones. And it does me too. It makes me feel good to know that I'm doing something for somebody and I'm not asking you for something back
In return,
in
right?
return. Okay. I think as far as, and this is, I don't know if it's hypocritical or if it's antithetical to the point, but I enjoy serving others, but I have found as we have evolved in marriage, I found it difficult to serve you.
No, I would not say that.
You don't
No,
think so?
no,
Did I do a good
because
job?
yes, you do. Let me tell you something. There are things that my wife do sometime
Well,
when it
there's a
comes to
difference though between the serving and service. They almost go together. Is there a difference though? I'm gonna say they go together. Is there a difference between
okay,
service and
since you
serving?
you referenced that, what is the difference? You think that, baby?
Are you
That maybe.
okay?
Yeah, no, my throat began
I
to
think you got
act up again.
acid. We've been doing prepping all day, and now you
All
got
day
acid
now, everything
reflux.
just popping up. I know it's just crazy. Well, we're gonna rebuke it in the name of Jesus. Amen. Amen. So, is there a difference between service and acts of
Well,
service?
I think service is. I think it's all about the tense of it. Like if I'm serving you, it's an act of service, right? Is what I'm going to say. I don't mind serving others, and as I'm serving you, it's my act of the action
Now, do
of
we do it
service.
as a duty, or
No.
we just do it out of the our heart?
Well,
Because
the big question should be then, have you ever asked yourself, how can you serve your mate?
oh yes, I've demonstrated
What can
that
I
on
do? What can I
several
do to serve you? Like,
to serve me.
yeah.
What can you do to serve me? Let me tell you, guys.
What's
I'm gonna
happening
say this to
there?
my wife is that when it comes to, and I fall short at this too, but I do. My acts of service is there. But when it
Mhm.
comes to my birthday, my wife go out, do the extra miles and the things that she does is amazing. And to me, that's showing acts of service, demonstrating how she really
Yeah,
expressed her love for
yeah.
me.
I
And then
think.
sometimes I don't feel like I really deserve it, but because you do
Aw.
that, even for my birthday, when you did my birthday, we went downtown in Manhattan,
Yeah,
and it was just amazing. It
yeah.
was amazing.
Aw.
So yes, I will disagree with you on that level
That I
that
struggle with that.
no, that you struggle with
I
that.
think sometimes when it talks about serving others, you serve people out of love, and that turns into an act of service. And sometimes when people say, Are you doing acts of service? Are you serving your husband? It can become off as are you it's a controlling thing, or do I have to do this because of that, right?
That's the thing. It's not contingent upon you do
Right.
this for me, I do that for you.
Right. Because if you're serving someone or you're showing acts of service, it shouldn't be forced. It shouldn't be coerced. It shouldn't be manipulated. If you do this, I'll do this for you. It's self-sacrifice, and you do it because you really truly love that person.
Right. You do it in a way that will is gonna honor.
But I tell you what, sometimes, if I'm honest, and other people might feel this way or have been in this situation, not now because I'm in a different place. Um, I think for women to have an act of service or to serve their husbands, sometimes we respond based on our emotions, like how we feel. Like you hurt my feelings today. I'm not cooking dinner, right? Or I don't feel like doing this for you. You did something wrong, or something happened,
So
and
you
I
telling me
don't
then
feel like
that's why
serving.
sometimes when I come home you don't cook?
Yeah, because you just said something that just messed me up.
Well,
And I'm like, you know what?
folks,
Let me
you know,
order Uber Eats and
confession is good for the
let
soul.
him figure that out when he get home. Let me throw some hot dogs in there,
No.
and you can have it. But no, no. Sometimes it's just more of an emotional thing,
But you know what,
not necessarily
yeah.
tied to you.
So when we
But if
talk
I
about
don't feel that
right,
way, right?
when we talk about access
Oh,
service,
yeah.
you know, there are some example of that. And sometimes, we don't think about these example
Mm-hmm.
as we see them as simplistic,
Mm-hmm.
but yet they're very powerful.
Mm.
Because sometimes we talk about acts of service, people think about the big picture. Oh, my husband or my wife gonna buy me this extravagant gift,
Right.
right? But some of the acts of service that we can do in our relationship, my wife mentioned it, like cooking a meal,
Yeah.
setting up a table,
Yeah.
right? Simple, basic things like that has so much value in it.
Yeah.
You remember I teach Wednesday night Bible study on what it means to
Being
grow in
godly. Yeah.
godliness. And one of the fruit of the spirit is joy, right?
Mm-hmm.
And most Christians don't think about joy to be one of those gifts,
Right.
right? We all focus on the extravagant gifts, whether like prophecy, a bishop, you name
Yeah.
it, right?
Yeah.
But we don't so much focus on joy because, joy is something that we do not consider, right?
Where's that? Where's that?
But my point is this
Come on.
my point is this, right? When we speak about act of service, these simplistic ways that we demonstrate that, people take those for granted, right? For example, if I come home and vacuum the house,
Yeah.
right, and my wife getting upset because I didn't do an act of service, her definition of act of service is probably, buy this nice shirt that she wanted and it cost like $100. But yet I come home to do an act of
Well, that
service
just that,
vacuum.
that just means that you're saying you're speaking the wrong love language. You're not understanding my dialect.
Well, yeah, but yes and no.
Well, here's the thing: we both have the same act. We both share act of service as a love language, and it plays out differently because we are two different people. And the way that I offer acts of service as a love language to you might not show up the same way you have acts of service for
Okay, you
me
remember
in
when
my
we were
relationship.
dating before
Like
we
my act of service is going all out for your birthday,
right, and she
going
does
all
that.
out
She
for
does an
something,
awesome
because
job.
that's the way I show my love is by making you feel happy.
Right. That's where
Like if you're happy, I'm happy.
you're happy. That is true. But one of the things that when we were dating, right,
Mhm.
my acts of service was to open the car door for you.
Oh yeah, that was an example I have.
And I remember we got separated like for 6 months,
Even
and you
that,
remember those simple things
yeah.
that other guys wasn't doing that for you.
When's the last time you opened a car door for me?
I think I did several times during this month.
This is
No, we just
the
started December.
4th of December.
That's
Run
true.
that back.
But I don't, I'm mindful of it, but I still do it. It's very
You're mindful
sporadic.
of it, but you don't do it.
But I do it though. I do it. Not as often that I used to,
Right.
but I still do it.
Okay. All right.
All right.
So servanthood is supernatural. Um, is one of the examples that we're using. We're still plugging away at the good book by Gary. What's it, Gary Chapman? Gary Thomas, Sacred Marriage, and he has a lot of good tidbits. And I wanna bring a quote in, but I'm gonna let you go ahead and maybe address a few things that you have scripturally about the act of service and how that really plays into a marriage.
But one other thing, even if I haven't touched the reference to scripture here,
Okay.
one other thing that Gary Chapman said about to make the access service very meaningful, right?
Yeah.
We just want to just haphazardly just plan it like that.
Mhm.
Just you know, you want to put some thought, some planning, because when you do that, you put your energy, your
Yeah.
time. You want to, you want it to make it to be meaningful to that person because the goal of access service is to impact that's significant in your
Right.
life, right?
Also, I want to put that if you're doing something for me, or if I'm doing something for you, and I'm complaining about it, and I'm huffing, like your teenagers do when you ask them to do something for you, and they act like they're gonna have a whole full out seizure just because you told them to go check the mail. That's not really showing that you're vibing with my acts of service.
Right.
So if I'm just like,
So let me ask you a question then.
then I'm not really fulfilling your I'm not filling your love tank. I'm just doing it because I expect something in
Well,
return.
one of the greatest access service, and this also go in line with humility. You reference some scripture here when Jesus washed the feet of his disciples. You
Hmm.
know, this is one of the most, I mean, the most example that we see in scripture that demonstrate acts of service.
Okay.
And it blew the mind of the disciples,
All right.
especially Peter, right?
Yeah.
But let me ask a question.
And
Why do
and
you
then that's another reason. If you think about the service industry, right? Look at what's happening in business and economics. You have a whole industry geared towards service, right? They're doing something tangible for you without seeking reciprocity, maybe monetary compensation,
wow.
but they're doing it because what are they? What's the job about? They're doing something for you,
Right.
right?
I want to use
Whether it's
an
groceries,
right.
take on. We went to Cheesecake Factory today, and we had some really good service. You ever been to a restaurant and your server offered you great service, and well, that's all I got with the server part.
But
So then you
something,
want to give them a better tip
right?
because they've done a good job and they didn't have
They've
to.
done a good job. But one of the greatest example I can give from my own experience, working in group home, and I remember a young man. He came to the facility when he was 10, and he became adult now, and he got locked up, and he saw me get to do prison ministry,
Right.
and he saw me there, and I asked him, "Man, what are you doing here?" And explained some of the behavior he was doing,
Yeah.
and he said something very powerful to me, and
What
it
is
blew
that?
me away.
What is that?
He said, "I remember the things that you have done for me and my brother. How we used to take us out to play soccer,
Mm-hmm.
basketball, and it
Mm-hmm.
just blew my mind, right?"
Yeah.
So when he said that to me, you know, this really spoke to me because sometimes the acts of service sometimes can leave an imprint upon someone's
An
life,
indelible mark.
indelible mark
And
upon that
that's
person's
that's
life.
so true. I think that's one of the most rewarding things. And my best friend Lydia can attest to this as being a teacher for decades. Just me being a professor for a short amount of time, the most rewarding part of it that gets me going all the time is knowing that I have helped my students out. And so when I see them on the street, or if I see them at Best Buy when we're buying equipment, right? Or if they send me an email, they're always like, I never forgot how awesome you were. This was probably my favorite class. I really learned this about it. I just ended a course teaching microeconomics, which is not a sexy course at all. But I received a lot of feedback, not evaluations, just personal feedback from my students saying, you know what, I really was ambivalent about coming into this course, and you made it fun. You made it worthwhile, and I enjoyed it. And that's an act of
It
service.
is an act of service because sometimes, and I'm learning that too as a teacher, right?
Yeah.
Because sometimes when you are a teacher, and I've learned this through teaching that sometimes it's not about trying to get the student um, to get a better grade, right? The goal is that you put your energy out
Yeah.
there and your time to call them. And I remember several students said to me, he said, professor, I have never had a professor that would call me
Mhm.
and take the time and tell me this is what I need to do.
Where
And
you were
thank you so
calling them
much.
because they had to get the papers due.
None of that. But you see, that's not to get the paper due. But think about it though.
Yeah. But no,
Some
I've
some
never had a
teachers,
professor
some
call
teachers
me.
don't call. I never have a professor
No,
call me and to say you
no.
need to get your paper in.
I'd be
But the
dodging it
fact,
like a bill collector.
right? But the fact is that I take the time
Yeah.
to reach out to them because doing that, let them realize that I do care about them.
I agree.
Right? So it's not about let them fail or pass. I want to make sure that they're grasp material
Yeah.
and to make sure that I do care for them, right? Because
Yeah.
I don't want to be the professor that make it so difficult. I'm one of the most difficult professor. Da, 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 da.
Right.
But the point is when you take the time to invest in people's lives, to
You're
serve
serving your
others.
students. And we're almost done with this teaching segment. But I
Right.
always tell my students at the end, it was a pleasure, an honor and pleasure, for you allowing me to teach you this semester.
But as we go into,
I'm not a professor if I don't have students.
right.
Right.
But as we look at this in the relationship context in the marriage, right? I like what Otto Piper nails about marriage. He said this here. He said that marriage is a reciprocal willingness of two person to assume responsibility
for each other.
Assume responsibility for reciprocal and assume responsibility for each
Isn't
other.
that what marriage is about? You go in for all these different reasons, and obviously you see perks, be it money, be it good looks for kids and whatnot. But the true essence of marriage is that you're going into a unit and you're being responsible for someone else.
And I believe that
you always thought that you weren't responsible. You were only responsible for people when you had kids,
right?
But you got to bring it all the way back. You're responsible for your spouse,
right? But but the question that we need to ask the question that we now will ask ourselves, we get into relationship, right?
Yeah.
That leads into marriage is that can this guy support me, right? That's the question we ask.
Or this gal.
Yeah. Does she find him attractive or do I find her beautiful?
These are the questions.
These are the questions. This question I ask. Would he be a great father? Would she be a great mother? One of the things I said about my wife.
Questions that we should ask.
What? No, well, there's nothing wrong asking these questions, right? But the question that we sometimes don't ask when we get into marital relationship, right? The right question that we should be asking is this: how can I serve my mate? Right? Now, the previous question I referenced here, nothing wrong with them, right?
Let me tell you this.
There's nothing wrong.
Let me tell you this. I ain't never asked that question.
Nah, be honest, I never asked that question too.
I want to come in. I ain't look at you across the table when we were first dating, thinking to myself, how can I serve? Well,
but as we look back, we can see.
In that essence, I wasn't thinking, how can I serve this gentleman right here?
But my mom was a woman of God, and she was the type of person. I want to use the word magnanimous, right? She was a servant.
Yeah.
She gives a lot. So I kind of received that from her. So it comes to me naturally.
Right.
But at the same time, as a Christian, it exalts, it magnifies the Lord.
Well, the vast majority of people don't enter marriage with a view of becoming a servant.
So let me ask you a question then. Why is it? Mm-hmm. Why is it a problem today where in the church world and out of the in the world that we do not see proper example of acts of service? Why do you think that is the case?
I think because people get the idea turned around that if I am to serve you, that means that you own me. And if I am serving you, or you are being served, then I'm being manipulated or controlled under your
thought process, right, exactly. Right? And the reason I asked,
all the ladies today, ain't nobody telling me, this is the independent women season. Ain't nobody telling me what to do. You can't do this. I can do this. I can do bad up. My mom used to say, I can do bad all by myself. Baby, you don't need a man. If you're doing bad with him, you can do bad by yourself.
But trust me, you need a man.
I'm just saying what mommy would
And a
say.
man need a woman. But the point is this though, one of the problem and the
I can do this a whole
misconception
play about it. I can do
that we
bad all
right
by myself.
that we see is that Christian men have this false concept that the woman or the wife is to unilaterally serve the husband
Well, a lot of
in
Christians, if I'm
everything.
honest, a lot of Christian men, a lot of older men in the church, or just a lot of traditionally minded men take this thought process and run with it. I'm the man. I need you to be cooking. I need you to have my food ready when I come home. I don't need you to work because I'm gonna win all the money. And then it comes into a control factor. If I'm the person that controls the money, then I'm the person that has the say in the relationship. I make the decisions. And so
Well,
from I think from
and
fear of that, a
that's
lot
a
of women say,
misconcept
I'm not doing that.
of what marriage is,
Or it's
right?
like you got your own 2 feet, you got your own 2 fingers. Why are you
No,
asking me to
you
get
said
up and do
something
something?
earlier, not on the broadcast, but I love for you to touch on that about um, submission and acts of service. You remember you said something to me earlier about that?
Yeah.
We talk about submission and
Yeah.
acts of service. You
Yeah.
want to touch on that a little bit?
In what context?
In the context that we're talking about right
Well,
now.
I have a quote, not a quote, but just a little paraphrasing from our book by Gary Thomas. And it's Christian marriage proposal is
You
an
cannot be.
offer, not a request. So it's important that instead of saying,
Go.
"Will you do this for me?" when we go into marriage and we invite people into a relationship, we should be asking a question that's more narrowed down and more focused. Will you accept what I give? Will you accept what I want to give?
Mm-hmm.
We go into marriage thinking, what can you do for me? What can I get out of this? Instead of really looking at it truly as, am I just going to truly accept what they have to give? Sometimes we go into a marriage with false perceptions. We are disillusioned, thinking that this person is going to do this for me and they're going to do it. And then when we get into that marriage, we put all these expectations on them. And they have no idea the expectations that are being placed on them. And when they underdeliver, we get upset.
Right,
And
exactly.
we're disillusioned by the fact, well, I thought marriage was going to be this way because you were expecting one thing instead of saying to your spouse, well, what can you really offer? What are you bringing to the table?
But can we say also that the type of disposition that we experience, we see that display in our own family as well, between our mom or dad, and we kind of
You
inherit
gonna turn
some
your
of
volume up?
their behavior in that and applying that in their
I don't
relationship.
know. I can't say. I was raised by a single mom, and all I know is grind it out, make it work, do better than what I have done.
Okay, even with
Don't
that
take
too,
don't take
you've been brought up in a
don't take
single family home,
the mommy's mantra was you can do
right?
bad by yourself. If you and your husband struggling, then why you got a husband?
But does that make it right to her?
It
That's the
doesn't make it
thing. It
right.
does not make it
But
right,
that's what I
right?
know. That's why it was easier for me to say let's exit because it wasn't working.
Right, and if we have this type of mentality,
Ain't no point hanging on. We're not going to be like a raisin in the
but
sun,
that's it, and that's the
and we're
issue, and
waiting
that's the
years and years and
problem.
years for
That's the
something to
problem
show up.
because now when you do get a good man that comes in your life who really do an act as service, some of us sometimes cannot receive it, cannot handle it.
Because that's not the love language spoken in the house.
Exactly, and that's my point.
Yeah.
And that is
No, you can
exactly
have,
my
and
point.
that's another reason why, ladies, women don't like good guys because good guys are get run over. Good guys are doormats.
And when we do something, when good guys do something, we think that, oh, why is he doing this?
Correct.
Is he expecting something from me?
Correct.
Right.
Correct.
And part of it too, because one of my background is in psychology, right?
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that we have learned in psychology is that you know your environment becomes you if you allow it to becomes you.
Yeah.
And we are determined. Sometimes our environment determine our behavior.
Well, and that's the reason why, as you were asking those questions earlier, most people start off with, "Do I find him or her beautiful? Will they be? Can this guy support me? Do I find this person attractive?" But then they never unpack the box, take all the styrofoam, out the box and say, are they going to be a good father? Are they going to be a good mother? How are they going to be able to serve me?
And that's one thing I would say to you.
Which I think is when you get married later on in life, or if you are remarried, I think it makes more sense to you. But if you're going in very young, sometimes you totally miss that mark.
Right, because
We got married late in life. We didn't get. I didn't get married to you till I was like 20.
You tell I'm too old or something.
No, I'm just saying. I purposely waited. I didn't want to get married young because I wanted to enjoy my life. I knew I wasn't ready to be of service to anybody but myself.
Now, I'm not saying anything wrong with that.
No,
I'm not
no.
saying
I'm
if
just
you
saying
know
with,
you're not
I'm just saying
ready,
with maturity
right?
and with age, you understand what your priorities are. You understand what you're going into marriage and you're asking. But even when we got married late, I still didn't ask the required questions.
But sometimes, some of our
I still miss that mark. So it's all about the teaching. Really, it's about that mentorship. Grab you a younger couple and tell them things they need to know.
I remember this. I was in seminary. This a young lady I've met, and
Oh, what you talking about with her?
I know what I'm talking about. But anyway,
You better move this
I met her and we talk, and she said she had 10 lists.
10 lists or 10 things on her list?
10 things on her list. Excuse me, 10 things on her list. Mm-hmm. And she said that the man, whoever gonna be with her, have to meet all 10 lists. I mean, the 10 lists, 10 things on her list, yeah. Right? And I said to her, I said, what if he missed one? Would you still marry him? She said, no.
I know people like that. I know people that have.
I'm thinking to myself, that's why you're behind is still
go look her up on Facebook and see, check her status.
No, she's still single. No, if you behave that way, you're still single. But the point is, what can we do for our mate? And that's the key. That is the glue that will glue your relationship together. If that man or if that woman is willing to serve you, to love you unconditionally, let me tell you something. Don't let that person slip out of your hand, right? And guys,
again,
listen.
It's not all about. Sometimes it's not all about money and career. Those things come. Those things can be lost just as quick as they show up.
But I have to say this though. One of the things that I was attracted to my wife, and I tell her this over and over, but there's another part, is that I watch how she treat her mom, their interaction, right? Mm-hmm. The way she loved her mom. And I said, wow. And the things that she would do for her mother. Because when we used to date, man, you would come and, I said, listen, I got to do X and Y for my mother.
I do anything for my mom.
Right. And I saw that. And when I picked that up.
My mom came first.
But when I picked that up in the relationship.
I don't know if it's healthy or not.
No, it was healthy because when I picked that up in the relationship, I said, wow. I know that she will be a good mom to our children. Well, because one of the stipulation I did said that if I'm going to marry a woman, I want a strong Black woman, right? Someone who's going to hold the fort when I'm not there. Yeah. And just to see the example of how you relate, the dynamic, you relate to your mother, I know that you are going to be a good mother. And you hear me say this over and over. Yeah. You're an awesome mother to our daughters, right? You hear me continue to say that over and over to you. Because I picked that up in the in our dating and the interaction between you and your mother.
Well, and as I said earlier, I love my friends, and I'll go above and beyond for my friend. And I consider my mom to be my best friend. She was my first best friend, right? And so you do things for people that you love. But I said this earlier, and I don't know, it might have been a sore spot, but as again we have evolved and we've changed. Remember what year was that we went on vacation? I think it was when we went on Florida vacations for the summer. We were just talking about our marriage and trying to just really reflect and figure out how to get on the same page. And I mentioned that you were a better father than husband.
Yeah, I remember you said that to me.
And I said,
I remember, man.
And I was like,
that spoke volume to me.
How am I? I was like, you're the best father I've ever seen. I said, but a husband's a whole different story.
Right. And then that's something. You know,
And it's
in
weird.
relationship,
You were a husband
yeah,
first and a father second,
second,
and yet you were up
father
until
first,
most
and our
recent
husband second.
years, you were a
Right.
better father
I
than a
agree with that
husband.
statement. I definitely can agree with the
But
statement.
we talked about that. And we kind of unpacked what that really meant,
Right, right.
right?
And sometimes, guys, I
And
tell
that
you,
required, and a lot of that was because
maturity.
you weren't filling my love tank. You weren't talking my
No,
love language.
exactly. Our love tank was kind of
But I'll put that
on
on.
the empty.
I'll add into the blame. I wasn't telling you how to love me either,
Yeah, and that's
right?
true. And that's true.
So you
That's
have to
true.
communicate that. You can't be mad at one of my toxic traits is I get
But you remember
mad.
now,
Let me.
yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
I mean, I ain't trying to tell people what my toxic trait is, but
No, you better not.
one one of my toxic traits is that's kind of a running thing on the internet is that I get mad at people for not doing what I want them to do, and I don't tell them what I want them to do.
Right.
You know,
Wow.
I was highly upset at a couple of suggested people at my church. I was mad at them because they weren't doing what I expected them to do. But then I never told them what I wanted them to do. They weren't feeling, and if we can move it out of just marriage, I think love languages is all encompassed of friendships, all type of relationships,
Right.
right?
Right.
Not only your marriage relationship, but your friendships and your situationships or your social ships. And so I was expecting some people to treat me a certain way that I felt I was supposed to be treated, and they were sorely missing the mark.
I
Not that they were
mean, do you
treating me
think that
bad; they
they
just
were
weren't treating
missing
me
the
at
mark?
all.
Do you think that they were missing the mark as
Uh,
you just believe this is your
Was it all in my head? Is that what
all
you're
in
trying to
your head?
say?
I'm trying to say that this is what should happen to me. You think that people were missing the mark as just there was something there that you didn't see that they
I
see?
expected people to treat me a certain way. I always have expectations on how I expect my friends to treat me because I treat my friends a certain way. And let's be honest, we're not friends, but I expected that relationship to be cultivated and be handled better than it was. But the irony is there was no cultivation of the relationship at all.
Right.
So it was just there. And I was upset at that because I expected that's what it is. I expected more
From
from certain
people,
people
certain people,
and
right?
without them even knowing what I wanted. But bring it back, I end up telling them what I expected, and they still didn't do it. And
Right.
that made me even more livid. Or they did it for other people
But
and
I
not
could, you
me,
know what? I could identify with that because
right?
when we were living in Louisville,
So that's a
Kentucky,
toxic. That's a toxic. I
it
get
is,
mad
it
when you're not doing
is,
what I expect, but I don't tell you what I
it
want you to
is.
do.
Because you and I did an acts of
That's about
service.
I don't
Yeah,
want to say it's
it's not
miscommunication.
miscommunication. I think what it is sometimes.
Am I by myself on that? Does anybody else have that
I've experienced that.
experience that? Or I pray you've never experienced that for me. I would love for you to let me know where I'm falling short because
Mm.
I pride myself on being a really, really good friend.
I mean,
Um,
which you are, to be quite honest
I
with
do what
you.
I can,
No,
I guess.
you are. I give you that. I give you kudos for that. 'Cause you did an awesome, you did a great job on that. Right.
Okay.
No, we were talking about, if I may use a scripture here,
Yeah.
Philippians 2, verse 3 to 4, Paul said, out of selfish ambition or vain conceit, but in humility consider others better than yourself.
Mhm.
Each of you should look not only to your own interests, but also to the interests of others. And I think this has become very problematic in the church world.
Ooh, let your
That people, there are Christians who want to put themselves first and put others first.
mhm.
I'm not gonna do such X, Y, and Z until you do this.
What's the Bible say? The first shall be last and last shall be first.
Now the first shall be last and the last shall be
Yeah,
first.
yeah.
Exactly.
And
Right?
it's hard to have relationship expectations not fulfilled. I agree, but we have to put the onus on ourselves as well. We have to communicate what our expectations are. We can't go into a relationship assuming that people, because they know us, they still don't know the inner essence of what we need in order for it to work for us.
But
Like a
some,
lot of times, we always talk about. I struggle with this one too. I'm always on a struggle bus. Um, there's a quote, and I want to elaborate. Can I elaborate? I got
yeah,
time real
go
quick.
ahead, elaborate.
It says about servanthood in women. It says many women are missing out because they are caught up in the search for significance. Okay, but the more you search, the less satisfied you feel. Why? Because significance is found in giving your life away, not in selfishly trying to find personal happiness. We
And
got
that is true.
about 10 minutes or so,
Yeah.
and that struck a chord with me because I'm always on a quest to find happiness. Right? One of my favorite movies is Eat, Love, and Pray. And I'm like, dang, why can't I go somewhere and go eat all day and find my joy and find my happiness? But even when you do that, if you are a partnership, you can't focus on your own
So
personal
then, can we?
happiness. You
Right.
have to figure out how we can be happy. And
Can,
sometimes it says it's selfish because you're trying to find personal happiness.
okay.
Because when you do that, you isolate everybody
Right.
else.
Can you give an example then that in our relationship that you can see the acts of service that has been demonstrated to
Can you speak
you?
a little louder for me?
Can you, in giving an example in our real marriage,
Yeah.
a recent example where the acts of service was demonstrated
I mean, if it comes when of you
of me?
create all day, like I said, you wake up like if we open up a book and it was like acts of service, Pedro's face would be literally right here.
I
When it
appreciate
comes to
that.
examples, let's jump into a couple examples. Some examples I had open a car door. We talked about that. You're working on that. When you remember, I tied that to your old age. Um, nursing your spouse when they're
No, only
sick.
you got nothing to do with
Look,
it.
because you be forgetting, so I'm gonna just charge it to your head, not your heart.
Don't charge it to my egg. Right.
Yeah, I'm charging your head, not your. I know you don't
Okay.
know. Nursing your spouse when they're sick. That's an act of service. When I always, not always, but sometimes in the morning when I wake up, you've already got a fresh pot of coffee going. That's active, so I don't have to ask. It's already there. What we talked about this one before, washing them dishes. Child, I hate the kitchen. I'll cook, but don't ask me to wash nothing. And so
I
that's an
think,
act of
and
service.
that's the balance that we have right there with
Yeah,
each other. Because
yeah,
I know that you will cook and I will do the cleanup, and
yeah,
sometimes I will cook.
yeah.
You know.
Run errands together is a good one. Sometimes I'm sitting in the house, I'm binge watching. You're like, you want to come with me to pay a bill? No, but then it's not about that. It's about spending time together.
Right,
And
it is
so
spending time to, and I'm
that's
glad
an
you
act
said
of
because
service, right?
sometimes and that does not lead into argument. I would say to you, and I would love for you to come so you can say,
Yeah,
so I don't get a ticket because in New York,
it's really
they will give
selfish
you a ticket.
manner.
Yeah, no, it's not really. It's
I'm
just
trying to.
wisdom.
I'm trying to double park. I need you to be in the car so
Right,
we
be in
can
the
jump
car
over
because
here real quick.
it's harder to get a parking space.
Yeah, yeah,
Right,
yeah.
but you have anything else to say?
What's that? Put the toilet seat down, guys. You do that, but I wish you just don't slam it down because you wake everybody up in the morning. It's like, ooh, like, all right, we know you peed.
Okay.
Um, Plug in the phone. I don't know. It's so much that you do. Like I said, I wonder what my acts of service are to fulfill your love tank because you got me beat on this one. If I'm honest about
Well,
it,
then, like I said, you go
I do big acts of
right.
service.
You go
You
out the
do
way
daily
to
acts
make
of
it.
service.
You really do. You really
You
do. You
know,
really do. And that's one of the things I love
I think
about you.
that's the difference.
Right.
I do really big act like I plan and I do extravagant acts of service, and you do daily acts of service, like just making. Well, you don't make the bed up, but you sweep the floor. Thank you.
Right.
I appreciate it.
Listen, it doesn't mean that I'm gonna do everything all what
Yes,
right. Making
you
the
need
bed
to
up, I
take
don't
people
do
with
that
you.
well.
Yeah.
But my wife does that
Okay.
well,
Yeah,
and
I can
I
do so.
acknowledge it.
I can
Now,
do
you want to
so.
use an example with a
No,
recent
what's this about?
incident, the football player
Oh no, I was just thinking if we're talking about acts of service and
that
how
can lead a
that
lot
could
of that.
lead to discontentment,
Hmm.
because as we note in our comments, if you aren't telling your spouse what you expect, it's going to lead to a lot of contention. One of the main things that I remember looking in the newsreel was the big divorce between Tom Brady and Giselle Bundchen. Why did they get divorced? Because all she wanted, well, I'm sure there was more than that, but the reason we got is that she wanted that man to retire.
Mm.
He done won every single MVP. He done went to two football teams and won Super Bowls. And she was like, "Let's focus on the
Doesn't
family.
because she right. Okay, you would answer that
Let's
then.
focus on the family." He retired reluctantly for 39 days and took his butt right on back to training camp. And like 2 weeks later, she was like, "I want a divorce."
Wow.
Now,
Wow.
you would ask, is that selfish of her? But I think sometimes you have marriage is sacrifice and you
Marriage
have
is
to
work.
count those
Yeah.
costs.
It's about what are the
Mm.
calls that are
Oh, I
you
got another one.
willing?
I got another one.
Yeah.
Another one. Let's bring it home for the people of color. Tia Mori and Corey Hardrick. Sister. They got divorced after 14 years of black love. We're like, where did this come from? And then weeks later, as she's circulating the newsreel, her main reason for leaving or exiting the marriage was because, as we talked about before, she wanted to find her own personal happiness. I'm like, damn, y'all in the marriage and you don't. Well,
Really, we're gonna
I'm
leave that
not. I'm not
alone. Yeah.
bewildered because
Yeah.
that's been me too. But you're in a marriage this whole time and you're not happy and you can't find your happiness. But we know that
That's
your
problematic right there.
partner
Right.
won't isn't there to make you happy.
But the question is, as we come to a close,
Yeah.
what are you willing to sacrifice?
What are you going to
What
sacrifice
are you willing to sacrifice for that significant person in
for your
your life
marriage? What
and
are
for
you
your
willing to
marriage?
sacrifice?
You know,
And you have to ask yourself,
but
as you're
not
going
only in the
into a
marriage,
marriage,
but
how am I going to
but if
serve
you're in
my
a
relationship?
relationship right now, right?
Yeah.
Because those things will determine what your marriage is going to look like in the future when
What
you do
what
get
what will
married.
determine
In your
those
you
questions?
know when you're dating, right? Are you willing to sacrifice certain things to accommodate each other? Are
Even that, let's be honest, you have to ask those tough questions.
mm-hmm.
Don't get don't get disillusioned by the lust and the honeymoon phase because that fades, trust me. And so when the dust settles, as they say, you have to realize what am I willing to accept from this marriage?
Right. And I would
Right?
say this year, as we about to close, is that the greatest act of service and that we have ever
Is
experienced is what Jesus did on the cross.
mhm.
That's the ultimate act of service. He said, "No greater love than this, that one to lay down his life for his friend." So, guys, are we willing to lay down sometime even our future goals? Are we
Mm.
willing to lay that down just for the moment to bring
For the
peace,
bigger picture.
right? To bring peace, to bring
Yeah.
wholeness within the
Yeah.
marriage. Are
Because
we
see,
willing to do that?
if you still consider yourself winning and you're hitting those goal marks for your personal gains, what is that doing to your marriage unit?
Right,
If
right,
I'm winning, somebody's got to be losing. So at what point do you need to put your marriage first over your personal your personal oh my gosh, your personal come on, you know the word I'm trying to say?
your personal goal.
I don't know. I don't know if that was the word I'm looking for.
I
We'll
know.
say it is.
Yeah. Well, my mind just went blank
My
on that
mind
one.
totally went
Went blank.
blank and it was so prolific.
Right.
Hmm.
A lot of people
Aspirations.
aspirations,
There we
right?
go. There
Aspiration,
we go.
and we have to use wisdom in the matter.
Take it to God.
And I know sometimes people are not in the Christian context,
Take it to
and we
whomever.
understand that,
Take it
but
to your higher power.
you
Take it
know,
to your ancestors.
you
Take
know,
it to the meditation.
whatever how you communicate that, right? I'll just put it that way. But if you have someone that you know,
Mhm.
a great friend, somebody who have been married for a long time, you can take it to that person, to that couple who can
Mentorship.
help you,
Marriage
can
mentorship is so
really
important.
give you guidance in that area.
That doesn't happen a lot in the church. We've only had one couple that's just said, you know what, we're going to take you guys, not even overtly, but we're going to take you guys under our wing and we're going to teach you the principles of how to have a successful marriage.
But one of the thing, one of the
But then
thing of
sometimes
that.
Couples be like, I don't want to listen to what you got to say, or even those couples aren't practicing what they preach, so they're saying one thing, doing
And that's the
another.
thing. That's the thing I'm saying
Okay,
because
yeah,
we are in a time right now where people don't put others. Well, we don't put others before us. We put ourselves before
hmm
others, and that's the problem,
yeah,
right? If you don't, if what do I get out of
yeah.
this? And
Give
that's it.
give your husband the last piece of chicken. If you know, you know. Give him the last. Give him the biggest
Shucks, my
piece of chicken.
my
No,
wife give me
I know you gonna say that.
my wife give me the bones, but
No.
I'm saying, where's the meat at?
Well, where's the beef?
Right.
Give your husband the last piece of chicken.
But
Give him the big
exercise, a
piece.
prime example of that too. When I cooked those steak, right? I
I
went
knew you was
out
gonna say
for
it.
Thanksgiving, and we were sick a little bit, and I went out. I
But
purchased four
I
steak,
asked for steak.
but
That's why you
I
didn't want it.
saw one of the biggest steak. I said, "Man, this is for me." But while I was cooking it, he said, my wife was not feeling well too. He said, "You know what? This big piece will be for her."
I like the fatty
Yeah,
piece.
she does.
Give
And
me,
they had
give
a
me.
lot of fat in on it. And I know that my wife loved the fatty part of the steak. So I said, you know what? I'm going to give my wife this piece. That was really an act of
Yeah.
service, right?
So with that, take that with you, and we thank you for hanging out with us. Next week, we're going to talk about our last and final installment, which is
Physical
oh boy,
touch. Oh,
oh
man, I love some
boy.
physical
I know
touch.
you do.
Now I want to have 5 babies, but I don't know. But
Nah,
anyway.
ain't nobody touching nothing with 5 babies. Come on, church. So we're gonna talk about that, and then we're gonna move on to our next subject, and we're gonna talk about church hurt.
Church. And yeah, I want to talk about, and please, if you have a question, if you have been hurt in church, you
Call
know,
1-800
call 100 Graham Brown.
Graham Brown. 888
888.
Graham
But
Brown.
not seriously though, so many people have gone through bad experience in the church. I've heard it said, I'm gonna wrap it up. I know it's not it's not the church who hurt people,
It's the people.
it's people who hurt people.
But people don't see that.
But we need to
They put
differentiate that.
everything
Right.
together.
We need to differentiate that. So we want to definitely talk about that.
And there's different kinds of church hurt.
Right,
So we're
church
gonna
hurt.
break that down
And you and I
as
have been
well.
through that tremendously.
Man,
So we're going to talk about that topic because
period.
because
That
I
part.
want this podcast to be a platform where people can express themselves and where people can find some form of healing,
And we're gonna say
some form of
we're gonna address the issues that people don't normally want to
fun to
address. And
address.
trust me,
Right.
we're here because we've experienced everything. And most things like this are birthed out of trials.
Trials.
And for the lack of not being heard. And this is the platform where we get to speak on it and be heard.
Yeah, because
All
we're going
right.
to talk about that. We're definitely going to talk about that.
And we're not getting we're not gonna say who and did
Nah,
what,
who done
why.
what? No, we're not gonna do that. But I would love to, but I
I mean, I
can't.
would,
Yeah, but that don't make any sense because that does not.
it ain't
It's
gonna
not gonna help
solve
the
nothing.
situation.
It ain't
Exactly.
gonna solve
So
nothing.
thank you guys so much
More therapeutic.
for
Right?
and for being
Cathartic.
lethargic, for
That's a
watching
good
us
word.
today.
We thank you for
We love
hanging
you.
with there. Oh, we do.
God
Hey,
bless
we
you.
do.
We do love you. We do love. We
Thank
love
you.
your
Thank you
support.
for the support. Keep
And
supporting.
please leave your comments. Leave your comments, and we will share. And
Don't
also,
forget we're on
Spotify,
Apple
Apple Podcasts.
Oh, that's all I'm saying.
Yeah, and
Okay.
and we on IG too.
And we right here.
We're
You
right
see
here.
us.
So
What did I
please,
say on YouTube?
on YouTube, and then we just begin another new segment called News Bites.
News bites. News bites are when we take today's topics, literally today's topics, and we give it to you from
But our
our
perspective
perspective. We
on
just
it.
recently talked about New York being the most expensive city in the world.
To wish for my blood. Starbucks monkey case.
You just gotta look at YouTube.
So you gotta look at you. I can't give him one of that, right?
I give you no more than
Right.
a whole handful.
The whole
Starbucks
handful.
monkey case.
The monkey case.
What was the other one? Oh,
And then
should men
take their wife's last name? That's a great one. So please go check it out. Go check it out and tell me what you think. All right.
Our latest lunch notes session was about
Being thankful in unthankful
That's
times.
it.
Yes. So
That's
check
so
that out.
hard, but
Yes.
it's doable.
It's doable.
All
Thank you
right.
guys so
We
much.
love you guys.
We love
Have
you
a
so
great
much.
night.
God bless you.
Thank you for
God bless
watching.
you. God bless you for your support. Peace out.
Peace out.
All right.
Bless up.
Bless up. May the grace of God